Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Before we start, I want to apologize. This video should have been coming out Saturday, I think. I ended up having a flood to deal with in my, well, where I live basically. So, yeah, I kind of just was not able to really work on it at all. As well as for the few people that actually watch my stream on Twitch. Yeah, I kind of just gave up on that stream as well for that reason. I'm fine, everything's fine, I lost basically nothing. Nothing of value because I was able to just act quick enough, but still, it's... well, I'll just say it was pretty scary, to be honest, but... it should be fine-ish. We're going to be reinstalling a new pump because the old one broke, and that's why we basically had this on our hands. But the moment that this is over, then that's basically that. That said, don't expect to have the refined tier list update anytime soon. I'm just saying this because I have machining Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So yeah, it is with, you know, machines, but there's a lot of screwing and unscrewing that you have to do in this, and well, I'll just say it's very time consuming. So yeah, sorry about that. That's kind of just how it is. I'm doing my best, but the schedule is just not exactly aligning. And well, the GHB Tempestral tier list, no, not that, but the refined tier list update is going to be like potentially an hour and a half, so yeah, I think I'm going to keep that one last, unlike what I do usually, which I do the banner review, then the refine, then the Tempestral GHB tier list update, and then Secret Seal tier list if that's applicable. But yeah, that's about all the news about this. So let's talk about the banner itself, shall we? Starting with the worst, let's talk about Zed. What, did you expect me to talk about Altena? She is pretty underwhelming, especially considering what she should be, but she is not worse than Zed. Now, Zed comes with Speed Rest Solo, which, I mean, good, we have all the solo skills now, which is nice. Pull Smoke is cool and all, but because of that skill he's not going to demote, which makes the entire inclusion pretty much pointless. I don't see anyone trying to plus 10 Zed, and I don't understand why he has Winds of Celeste or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. I guess they were like, oh, but in FE4, you get to choose who's his mother, and therefore he doesn't always get to use Forseti. And to those people I say, shut the fuck up. No offense, but in Thracia, Zed has Erinys as his canon mother. So as a result, he has Forseti in FE5, where he has a canon mother. Why the hell does he just not get Forseti, or just a better version of Forseti, or anything really? Like, even if he would have just power crept Lewin, I would have been fine with it. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what happens in FE4. Lewin is strong, but he just kind of retires from fighting, and that's why Zed has Forseti, and he's actually super good with it. So it just makes complete sense for him to just be like a better version of Lewin. But instead we get this, which is just Attack Speed Solo. Attack Speed Solo is not bad, but if it's a weapon effect, in a world where Fallen Corrin gets 6 attack speed, def, and res, and barely lose any stat if someone is within 2 space, including adjacent, instead of all of the stats. And on top of this, it gives like an extra 3 attack, which is way more helpful than 3 speed, especially for Zed's case. And on top of that, I think you get the point. Like, on top of that, Corrin is colorless, this is green, I think you... let's move on. It's overall a pretty underwhelming weapon, especially once you'll see what you can compare it to. Especially also once you realize that there's another type of weapon, inheritable weapon, that's going to be added at one point, which are the Fox Tomes. What, did you expect me to talk about blade tomes again? No. Fox tomes basically make so your enemy loses 4 attack, speed, def, and res during combat when you're initiating. So, let me put it this way. Would you want to effectively get 6 attack and 6 speed? Or would you like to effectively get 4 attack, speed, def, res, and get to refine the weapon? Meaning 2 more health, and either 3 res, 3 def, 2 speed, and 1 attack. The answer is very easy. You want the refine. Here's why. His res is not good. That said, if you refine a refinable weapon to res, at plus 10 you're sitting at 38 res. And that's without flowers. Meaning that you're ploying very effectively, which gives you the niche of being able to ploy while being able to attack well. That's already a good thing, right? Well, the pref weapon can do that. But the problem is if you're going to wait until fox tomes are going to be added for greens, and you decide, oh, I'll go for this, there is a better option. Slightly better, but a better option all the same. Let's talk about that option, shall we? In fact, let's talk about both things that you can compare set to. So, Lou. Let's talk about, first off, Celica and Lewin. So, even if you go attack plus on on Ced, my bad. Ced is basically only getting 1 more speed than Celica, which basically doesn't matter. The def is more or less the same, the res is more or less the same, and that's without considering Celica getting a boon somewhere. Yeah. It's pretty foolish. And the thing is, Celica gets a pref that basically provides her an instant amount of damage that is true damage, while also providing herself with, you know, a B skill that is no follow-up on top of Desperation, which makes it very annoying to deal with. In what world would you want to use Ced over this? Ced's weapon is that underwhelming. I don't know why they made Ced this bad, considering he was one of the most popular characters that was yet to be added in the game, but here we are. I feel like they just gave up on making any kind of, how can I put this? Any kind of mage unit really decent. Like, I can't really remember the last tome unit that was really good, outside of Alphonse, of course, but Alphonse is more so a fluke than anything, I feel like. Honestly, at this point, especially seeing this banner, especially seeing Travent, I feel like they should just have a second opinion from other players that have actually played those games, instead of them just looking at stats on a wiki and just deciding, oh yeah, screw it, let's do it that way. This will become extremely apparent the second I'll be talking about Altena, but I'll leave it at that. Now as for Lou, you might have noticed Ced either is tying the boy or has more than the boy in every stat, until you realize one thing. Lou is an attack super boon. In other words, even if Ced goes attack plus, he's going to be 1 point behind. But Jay, what if you're going to be using the Winds of Celeste? If you're using the Winds of Celeste, I'm going to just put it this way. He is not worth working on. Lewin, Legendary Celica, those are 2 fantastic options. Especially considering Lewin is getting a banner this very month. In other words, why in God's name would you ever invest in Ced? And that's me saying this as an actual Jugrol fan. I hate the fact I have to say this, but no matter how you're looking at it, Ced is underwhelming and extremely underperforming, which is sad because his voice actor is great, the art is great, reminds me of Travent in that regard, yet he's pretty bad. Now, if you're thinking about changing his weapon, first off, Fox Tomes, Ground Fox is not in the game yet. That is worth mentioning, but then again, if you're switching to any other tome, it's typically not even worth it. If you're going to go for Blade Tome, then, I mean, there's so many green tome that can do the same for much cheaper. Nino is a good example, and she does not get cooldown -1, which means she can run Heavy Blade Glimmer and just proc it on the second hit every time with Desperation. That's a good example, and that's a 3 to 4 star unit compared to a 5-star exclusive that's going to remain 5-star exclusive for sure, because Pulse Smoke is just that good. No matter how you look at it, Lowen's situation is pretty dire. But now let's just go, like, you know, talk about, say, if Foxstone gets in the game. You know, that's the main thing, really. And you refine it to res. If you take Lu and refine it to res with attack plus, you basically just have a better set. The extra 3 points of speed, are pretty useless overall because the weapon already provides you 4 speed, you can get buffed, and then, you know, we are already at 46 speed. And that's without, like, any drives or anything of the sort, where it's super easy to work with, especially since he can run Speed Ploy at that point. As for the def, 2 points doesn't make that much difference, no matter how you look at it. So, yeah. Would you trade 2 def for 1 attack? I know I'll pick the attack any day, but what about you? I think I've made my point. Lu is barely better than Zed, mind you. So if you like Zed and you don't have an attack plus Lu, that's fine to pull for. I'm just saying overall, Zed doesn't have a whole lot to his name. Which is unfortunate, considering he should have a holy weapon. Not this Winds of Celeste shit. Anyway, let's talk about Altena. Oh boy, Altena, what have they done to you? So, I want to preface this with the fact that Travent basically has the same stat line. I think he has 1 less attack, 1 more speed, 1 more def, and like 1 more health at the cost of like 1 res, something like that. Like, it's basically the same unit. But see, here's the thing, right? Why in hell do they have the same stat line? Now, I know a lot of people here are not really fans of Jugro, I've never really played them, so let me just walk you through this. I'm going to do something similar to what I've done with Forsyth, and in explaining why, and I was pretty disappointed with his speed stat considering he had an insanely high speed growth rate for his game. Let's talk about Altena, shall we? So, sorry if it's a bit small, I guess I can just do this. So, as you can see, if we're just looking at Travent, he's a level 30 Wyvern Lord. To put it in perspective, this is a level 50 unit, effectively. Certain bosses are able to go over their cap purely because story reason. 24 strength, 18 speed, and 26 def. So the fact that in Heroes his highest stat is defense makes sense. His second highest is strength makes sense. His speed is not really good, makes sense. 6 res makes sense that his res in Heroes is garbage. 65 HP, yeah, that makes sense that he has a good chunk of HP in Heroes. His stat line makes a lot of sense. And I feel like what happened is one of two things. They either decided, one, oh, well, she was raised basically by Travent, so how about we just take his stat line and change it a little to make it a cute little reference? Which basically just dug a grave for the character, mind you, but let's forget about that part for a sec. And then the other one would be, oh, well, this is the earthly Gable. Since Gable itself is not really good anymore, I guess we should just give it a new form. And since Quan is built to be in such a way, I guess the daughter should be also built in such a way. And I hate this. I absolutely despise this, in fact. Because the thing is, Altena and Quan are not built like the same unit in their game they're from. And, not to mention, they also completely ignore the fact that Quan can be built with speed pretty effectively, since unlike Altena, he has 28 base speed, making it a lot easier to work with in the first place. Still difficult, but I mean the extra 3 speed doesn't hurt 2 speed if you consider the speed super boon on Altena. 2 speed makes a good bit of difference. So, already there, pretty lame, the fact that she has no speed, but then I want you to look at the base speed. She comes as a level 17, this is unpromoted, 17, with 18 to 21 speed. Now, the reason why stats vary here is that dependent on the level of your parents, before you move to the next generation, your base stats are going to be higher. The absolute lowest, and that is because you have not leveled Quan whatsoever, the absolute lowest strength you can get is 18. Which is, or not strength, speed, sorry, which is tied to Travant, despite the fact that she is a third of his level. Yet for some reason, she is slower than Travant. What in God's name happened here? And also, I also want to point out another thing. 60% speed growth. She was by no means slow. The only issue she had is the fact that she came in so late in the game that leveling her up a little to just get her started was a bit difficult. She was not exactly an S archetype, because, I mean, look at those stats, but she just came basically a chapter before the end, if memory serves, which makes it very difficult for her to keep up. But other than this, like, if you were able to get her going, okay, get her like 2-3 levels, get her promotion going, she was insanely strong. Yet you're telling me that this character here should just be worse? What? Then her dad, in terms of speed, it doesn't make sense. As you can see, her strength is her highest stat, speed is the second, and def the third. Now, why in God's name is def the highest stat here? You see what I mean? There's a lot here I absolutely despise. Honestly, the easiest thing to do would have just been like, okay, I'm taking 8 points of defense and put it into speed. That's all you needed to do. And it would have been perfect. In fact, that would have made her a very good unit. And would have made her be able to use her weapon a lot better, because the thing is, this type of weapon that basically allows her to do 5 more damage and take 5 less damage really wants you to be quicker than your enemy. And that's the problem. She's not. With this stat line, she's a good Altena counter, and that's basically the extent of it. Even at plus 10, her speed is very hard to work with unless you have something like Life in Def 4, or, you know, work with Brazen Attack speed, which is not exactly good. Especially since, you know, the way the weapon is done, you also get bulk in your res, so you would want to build the res. The res is too low, so it's not really workable. That one at least makes sense because she has a base of 12% res growth with 5 to 6 res. Not exactly easy to work with. But yeah, so she is slow despite the fact that she should be quick. Honestly, she should have had something similar to Cormac's stat line. Cormac's stat line is more fitting to Altena's stat line than Altena's stat line. Oh, my head hurts. So she comes with fantastic skills such as Reprisal and Brash Assault. Such fantastic unit. So fantastic skill even. Reprisal is garbage and doesn't even make sense for the character. I feel like at least give her Bonfire for God's sake. But oh well. Sturdy stance is pretty good, so if she does get demoted, this is pretty welcome. If they decide not to demote Altena, despite the fact that she is so underwhelming, I don't know what to say, fam. I really don't know what to say. This weapon is a decent weapon, but I'm gonna be honest, if I were to pick between Akai's weapon and Earthly Gay Bulk, I would pick Akai's weapon. Straight up. Yes, it's 2 attack def that you don't get to remove, but cooldown -1 allows you to just build in speed, run Bonfire, get hit, proc Bonfire. It makes it so much easier. The way she is right now, if you want her to proc a special in 1-5, requires you to have either Brave Lucina with Ignis, and that locks you to enemy phase, or run Moonbow / Ruptured Sky, which is not exactly ideal now, is it? This is really depressing. Honestly, Altena, out of all the characters that have been added here, outside of Travant, of course, Travant was probably my favorite GHB unit that I wanted to see in the game, and he was also just shafted with a silver lens for no goddamn reason, of course. And then Altena is probably the character I wanted to see in the game from FE4 Gen 2, at least, the most. That and Shannan, and both of them have been ruined. So that's not exactly very nice to me. Altena is a lens flyer. If you're a lens flyer with a weapon that does not exactly work or is extremely awkward, it just means don't bother with the unit, doesn't it? Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about comparison here, instead of me just sounding depressed. So, okay, I'll talk about Tsubaki first. Tsubaki basically has more or less the same bulk, though keep in mind, because of Gay Bulk, you're basically looking at 42 defense because it gives you def +3. So you have 7 more def than he does, and because of Gay Bulk, you effectively have 25 res because you remove 5 attack from the enemy. And so Tsubaki ties her at 25 with his own weapon that gives him 3 across the board, and as far as def is concerned, you're basically at 9-point deficit. You're also behind by 17 attack. Why am I even considering Tsubaki here then? Well, to put it simply, the difference here is that Tsubaki has a speed stat. The only way to consistently make Altena work would be to actually run Brazen Attack Speed or Life and Death 4. If you run Life and Death 4, you end up behind Tsubaki in terms of bulk. 100%. If you run Brazen Attack Speed, you might have trouble and get killed before you get to proc it, because your speed is kind of miserable before you get to proc it. Even at +10, you're sitting at like 39 speed, basically. So you're stuck in this very awkward spot where you kind of wish the unit was quicker, just so setting up Brazen would be easier. Whereas Tsubaki has a speed stat and is able to have enough bulk to get in Brazen very easily by himself, which means double Brazen is very feasible for him. In other words, you can basically just run Brazen Attack Def with Brazen Attack Res on top of his weapon. Now, not only would he end up having better stat in Altena after the first fight, he would also have cooldown -1 in his weapon. Which means proccing Bonfire every fight is very doable, even without Heavy Blade or anything of the sort, which Altena has to resort to because her weapon does not give this. The second you just jump from her weapon to something else is the moment you should just consider not using this unit. It's as simple as that. Because at that point, all you should be doing is just work on a core mag, I guess. That's how underwhelming it is. Let alone if I'm talking about Est in terms of offense. God damn. If you're talking about pure offense, because you'd be running Desperation with Brazens, or Life and Death with a Brazen, with Desperation again, let's just put it there. Let's just put it this way, right? Est effectively would be only behind by 4 attack, but have a Brave effect off of it. Yeah. Look, low attack def 5 is good and all, but the problem is, well, first off, it's inconsistent. Look, there's one thing I said back in my review for Quan, and it's simple, that the Gay Bulk was a really underrated weapon. Now, see, here's the thing, right? It was underrated back then because flyers did not have nearly as much support as they have now. So the main things that you were dealing with were infantry and armored unit, which the weapon worked against both. Nowadays, the meta has shifted toward infantries and flying units. And the only time that you're not dealing with flying unit is very specific armored unit, which Altena is not going to be dealing with whatsoever, like Sophis or, God forbid, Christmas Marth. So, if you're in such a situation, the fact that your weapon doesn't work against flyers is not exactly a good thing. Let alone the fact that you're a death tank that is flying. Meaning you have to run Ioday's Shield for a unit that has to run Brazen attack speed anyway, because otherwise she doesn't get anywhere. Unless you run Life and Death 4, which, need I remind you, would just mean Tsubaki would be in a better spot altogether. It's very awkward, and even with this encounter, I really tried to make it work, but it's too iffy. You'd have to be reliant on a lot of drive res support from other units, and that's not exactly something I really want to be mentioning whatsoever in general. If you're extremely team reliant instead of just like relying on one unit in particular, it's just not worth it, because it means that you're locking yourself to one team comp. This makes her overall fairly underwhelming. I do wish Altena was better than this. Honestly, if they just decided to make the Gay Bulk remove attack and speed -5, or just reduce it to, say, -4, but remove the not working on flyer condition, I would have been fine with this. Alright, 3, and just make it a lull still. Because, you know. But at that point, they'd have to have the second effect, and we can't have that about a unit that's about to demote now, can we? We just have to have a lull effect with a bad base effect of death +3 and call it a day. Am I right, fellas? I am very bitter about this. I'm extremely bitter about this. But that's just how it is. Next up, let's talk about the build. Like I said, Life and Death 4 can work on Altena. She's the type of unit that is going to be just absolutely desperate for flowers. 46 speed is a bit miserable already, and that's with Life and Death 4 and buffs. Go figure. Like I said, her speed is just so miserable. It's very hard to work with. Even at +10, even with the Super Boon active, even with Life and Death 4, you're still too slow. Unless you put flowers, then it kind of works. Set on the right is completely giving up on Distant Counter. If you run Distant Counter, it just doesn't really work too good, but this is good with flyer formation. Keep in mind the set on the right is considering having teammate with gold flyers, and mostly just Camilla in general. Camilla is going to be basically, in general, if you're going to be using Altena, you need to be using Camilla with her. There's no question about it. You need the 3 attack and speed the weapon give, you need the 4 attack and speed the gold will give, and then you need the support stat that she will give. 9 attack and speed makes a world of difference with this. because it means you'll be at 48 speed. It also means your attack will just jump up to 72. And with the bonds themselves, 84. And with the Gearbolg, 89. 89 attack and 48 speed is pretty solid. And also, on top of this, you end up with 57 def and 47 res, because you get rid of 5 attack on your enemy side. Which makes her very solid, but the second you're dealing with any mages, you're a sitting duck. And there's just no way to really make anything such as this encounter really worth the trouble. So yeah, Altena here is a min-maxed monster in a world where min-maxed monster doesn't really work. I really wish she was better than this. I truly wish she was better than this. I'll probably still plus 10 her because Altena is probably one of my favorite character of genealogy. But my god, is it depressing to look at. All they had to do was to move 8 def to speed. That's all they had to do. And the character would have been so much easier to work with. Keep in mind also, if you want to use Ignis, typically you'll be having to use Brave Lucina. So this is another thing you can do. Run Brave Lucina with double drive speed, so effectively you basically get hit back, proc. But yeah, that's about the maximum you can really do with Altena. I really do wish there was more to it, but yeah. At least it's not as bad as said. That's basically the only good thing I can talk about as far as that is concerned. And from one depression to the other, let's talk about Shannan. Now, I'm going to be talking about Shannan and then right after Larsay, for very obvious reasons. They're kind of just too similar for me not to compare them. So, first off is Shannan. They were so close of making the unit really good. It's very similar. It's a very similar situation to Altena, except in this case there is a competitor that just does everything better, which is depressing. All they had to do, and this would have made sense by FE4 standards, all they would have had to do is to make so that if the unit is in the player's hand, make so that whenever he gets hit, you get 2 charge instead of 1. That's all they needed to do, which meant he would not have to rely on Brave Lucina, which means he would actually be a lot more, you know, active, which would have fit Shannan a lot more. And also the fact that Shannan is like the best sword master that has ever walked on Jugrol, basically. To put it simply, Odd, which is OD, basically, that's his blood. He has a major holy blood in Odd, and he is the only character that has it unless you cause a bit of incest with Heir to cause Larsay to have major holy blood herself. Yeah, this is a actual plot point in FE4 where if you actually just, you know, make 2 people with minor holy blood of the same character, it turns into major once you make them bang, basically, for the child. Yeah. Anyway, so because of this, he gets the Balmung. The Balmung is basically his pref in the game. It's a 30 might weapon that gives 10 skill and 20 speed, so it makes sense for it to give speed plus 3. The thing is, Shannan is basically more or less defined by the fact that he has insane amount of skill, which is what's reliant, what he's reliant on for crit. Also, it's also worth mentioning that Balmung, once you get to 50 kills plus with the weapon, will turn into a slaying edge. I'm not shitting you, this is an actual mechanic with every weapon of FE4. Effectively, it allows you to have a ton of crit on whatever weapon you're using. Killer weapons can also get this effect. So because he ends up with like 40 skill most of the time, and because he has the Ball Mung giving him like, well, making his skill to 40 because it gives 10 skill. And on top of this, because of the 50 plus skill, he typically has at least 50% crit rate on every hit. Add to this the fact that he can proc Astra, and every hit of Astra does full damage. Add to this the fact that every hit can actually crit. I think you can imagine why I say that he's the strongest sword master that has ever walked. Especially when you have a 30 might beat stick to combo into it. Yeah. Yeah. So, isn't it weird that now that you hear this, that he has like an insane crit rate and consistently crit and like I think he has a 40% Astra proc rate or something in that game, which is ridiculous. It's just insane. Whatever he touches basically dies. The only weakness he has by FE4 standards is the fact that he's not on a horse, which means that, you know, his movement is quite limited. Also, the fact that he's basically overkilling everything. He typically doesn't even need to proc Astra. If he procs Astra, it's a death sentence for whatever the heck he's fighting, even armored foes. At least with Balmung. So, yeah. Pretty badass character. But why in heck do you make a character that has overall like 40 skill, a weapon that will typically also have a slaying effect, on top of just overall being a very strong weapon? Why the hell is this worse than Larce's Edge, which is just a random killing edge that she picked up and kept up? Yeah. Also, why the heck is it not proccing skills nearly as often? Look, let me just put it this way. If the weapon basically meant that whenever he gets hit, he gets 2 charge instead of 1, similar to the way Owain's weapon works. I know everyone forgot about the Mistletoe he had, but the way it works is essentially, even if he's the one initiating, say he procs, get hit, he would proc again if the skill has 2 cooldown. Which, by the way, does not even remove the niche of Owain, because the thing with Owain is that, well, to put it simply, Owain has cooldown -1 in his weapon, meaning that 3 cooldown are the skills he's going to pop out every time. In other words, skills such as Bonfire with like, you know, 40 defense or Blue Flame will do just as much, if potentially even more damage than Shannan. So, you know, there's that, and the fact that it would only work in the player's hand, as I said earlier. This would have made the character so much better, because it would actually made him self-sufficient. Right now, he's super reliant on Brave Lucina to even function, which is depressing, considering he should not be in this way at all. Not to mention, they also shafted him in another way by making the condition for his 5 across the board and anti-penalty effect for it to be, if foe's HP is equal to 100%, that's a good effect. But if foe initiates combat is the other condition. That's a problem. That's a problem because it makes it very just not good to use. Larce has a much easier condition to fulfill. I guess I should just switch between the two as we go along. Larce's Edge is basically the same thing, except it gets rid of, you know, foe's bonus. And instead of if foe's attack, it's if her speed is higher than the enemy's speed. With 40 base speed, that's not exactly hard now, is it? Yeah. Yeah. And cooldown -1 in the weapon, which makes the weapon a lot less awkward. That's kind of the problem with Shannan. He's just very awkward. I wish it was not the case, but he really is just awkward. Larce just has like every tool in her disposal, and she's super frustrating to deal with. Want to use Blade Tome? Nope. You'll just be doing like no damage, and if close call is around, even if you have like a blue tome unit with 60 attack, you'll fail to kill. Simple as that. It's just really frustrating to deal with. And if you have only more speed in combat, well, she still gets 4 across the board, and she still gets rid of all of your bonuses, even if you're like, if your HP got lower because, you know, Fury or some other skill. Altena can deal with this, you may think? Not really. Ragnalastra is just really nasty with a cooldown -1 weapon. But, well, we'll wait until we talk about builds now. To put it simply, Larce's Edge is just better than Shannan's Balmung, and that's really depressing. Every single holy weapon that we've gotten from this banner is bad. The Gable is below average. The Balmung is worse than Larce's Edge. So, why? Like, why is, you know, Larce's random ass killing edge just better than Balmung is beyond me. I actually wanted Larce in the game as well, but like, not this way. Shannan should be the strongest sword unit we're getting, as far as infantry swords anyway, in this game. Like, even if you're considering just the Forging Bond, even in the Forging Bond, it's quite clear that he's supposed to be the better one of the two. He's basically teaching Larce the same way he was taught by Heir how to use the blade. He's basically her teacher, yet the student is just completely better than the teacher. Why? Anyway, going back to Shannan for a sec. Shannan at least has Wrath, which is definitely welcome, which is kind of ironic that, you know, he's not the one that has the skill that makes him bulkier when having more speed than the enemy. It's Larce that has it. And Larce, the one that's all about damage, is the one that has the defensive V skill instead of Wrath. Am I the only one that just is confused by this? Thankfully, Wrath is also available on 4-star, just because of Astrum, but still. Steady Posture is... it's okay. I don't see a lot of unit really make use of it. The thing is, Steady Posture 3 would be a fantastic seal slot, but as an A slot, it's just extremely awkward. Typically, if you want more def, you don't care about the speed, you know? Sure, my Mordecai would absolutely adore something like... what would it be? Swift Stance, I guess? But that's a story for another time, you know? That's a very specific kind of build. It's a skill that's just extremely specific as to what character you want with it. Sophist would be an example that would definitely make use of it if it wasn't for the fact that it, you know, get rid of DC, which, again, it tends to be the problem with this skill. But say if she had DC in her weapon, this would fit perfectly for her, but you know, that's just kind of how it is. As for Imperial Astra and Ragnall Astra, for the two people who are wondering, Ragnall is typically for how can I say this, distinct royal lineage from what I understand, and Imperial would be the straight lineage. This is a reference to the fact that Shannan has basically pure major holy blood for odd, whereas Larce/Ira only has minor holy blood for odd. I also think that Imperial Astra was meant to be something else. Honestly, they could have just made it one cooldown just for Shannan, because, I mean, he's literally the only character that would be able to get this. But I think that would have been a bit busted. I do think that just giving him an extra charge when he gets hit in the hand of the player would have been the play here, and would have made him so much better. I would have actually plus 10'd him. I don't care if my Iris plus 10. I just don't give a shit. I just really like Shannan. And, well, I like Ira's relationship with Shannan. in general. Just the whole hard-ass teacher that just wants the best out of you. I don't know, there's something about it that is really endearing, especially since I'm a kendo teacher myself. But, yeah. As for comparison, well, overall, Shannan is a fantastic stat line if it wasn't for the fact that his res is so atrocious. Honestly, it's just like, you know, Altena, you could have just taken 7 defense and put that in res. Oh, what's that? Is the same def res as Larcey? Well, too bad. Just trade the def res that Shannan has to Larcey, I guess. I don't know. Or just... I guess even 5 defense into res would have been fine. Just in general, having so little res makes Shannan a bit unwieldy, which is kind of a shame overall, because his attack and speed is in a very good spot. Though, honestly, his speed could be even lower and it would still be fine. The weapon giving him 3 speed is just overkill. Still, it's a very strong offense. I just wish, you know, there was more you could do with it. As for Larcey, this stat line is gross. There's just not much you can do about it. She has insane res, she has insane def. The second that you just combo it into Brazen, you'll just realize what I mean. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't have 30-25. Neither does Shannan have 37-18. Shannan has 42-23, most of the time. And Larcey has 34-29, basically all the time. And that's not considering merges, that's just considering their weapon, giving them 4 across the board and 5 across the board for Larcey and Shannan respectively, which is insane. The stat increase is definitely helpful, and the condition is just so good in general as well. It means you can play defensively or offensively with both of them, though in Shannan's case it's more like defensively and defensively, because it's if foes attacking unless they are at full HP. The second they're not at full HP, Shannan just loses a lot of steam, meaning if he doesn't kill the enemy unit in one go, you know, what tends to happen is Wings of Mercy with a Dancer, and then suddenly, oh look, the unit that has been danced is not at full HP anymore, you lose 5 across the board that you wish you would have. Yeah, it's kind of atrocious. Whereas Larcey would just still outspeed the enemy, so she just wouldn't care. Also, getting rid of penalty versus getting rid of buffs. Gonna be real honest here. If it's conditional, you know, if it's actually conditional and requires you to just like have the enemy at full HP or attacking you, which is a bad condition, versus having more speed than the enemy or the enemy's at full HP, yeah, I'll take the one that removes buffs, thank you very much. The one that gets rid of buffs is actually very strong. In fact, it just considerably just shuts down all blade tomes, which that is disgusting. And not to mention, I actually can see her being extremely frustrating to deal with in Aether raids. Let me just put it this way. How do you deal with one that's buffed by 2 heirs? Because she's gonna have 51 health at that point. So already there you're kind of in a bad spot, because that's unmerged. Add merges to this, you're at 55. Add Dragon Flower, you're at 56. So you add a 3rd heir now. You're at 40 res with 61 HP. Or how about you just go in Aether Raise right now when she's going to be a bonus unit. She's going to have enough HP to just ignore Panic Towers, ignore Versa, will be able to ignore you having any buff, will basically only get debuffs from like shrines and chills. That sounds really fucking annoying to deal with. And the worst part about this is that her bulk is going to be solid, at least for those 2 weeks. After this, it very is team reliant, but still, Jesus. In some cases, I can definitely see it work. Because as I said, the weapon gives 4 across the board for a very easy condition to fulfill. Keep that in mind. Yes, chill speed can screw her over, but at the end of the day, if that's all I have to look out for, it's not really dangerous now, is it? Especially considering you could just say, oh, I don't know, run attack speed bond if you're really scared. Attack speed bond 4, I mean, which completely shuts down any penalty you receive in attack or speed. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about builds. This is Shannan. The set on the left is really based on just killing. Surprise, surprise. You're already at 75 attack when you're getting attacked, essentially. Brazen attack res will push that to 82 attack. Time pulse will give you the one charge you need, so essentially you don't really need Brave Lucina for this unless you're dealing with multiple attacks in one enemy phase. In which case, Brave Lucina might actually come in handy. You're also looking at 42 res here. And then when the Brazen pops up, you're at 49 res. 49 res with 52 def. That's pretty good. They're pretty bulky. And you have 54 speed on top of, well, once everything's active, 82 attack. It makes you hit really hard, and the second that you proc Regnal Astra with 54 speed, you're basically adding an extra 21 damage on top of it. Which, you know, hits quite hard. Pretty good at dealing with the enemy, but again, Larcey is more frustrating. Wrath 3 and Time Pulse allows you to just proc Regnal Astra, or Imperial Astra, I guess I should call it this way. It allows you to proc Imperial Astra just right away if you want to just have a quick kill from one initiation. This is just so he actually has at least a way to, you know, defend with anything that's in front of him. Because otherwise, he's kind of screwed. I'm gonna be completely honest. He's pretty screwed otherwise. Set on the right is more based on dealing, well, with ranged units. Attack res bond is only there just because, you know, you'll be on an you'll typically be baiting stuff with this anyway. So if you have attack res bond, you can work at all HP, which means you can get healed, which makes it a bit better to just deal with, you know, multiple foes. No attack def is only there to improve his bulk somewhat, and also just, you know, kill easier. To prevent Wings of Mercy, because then losing the 5 across the board the weapon gives really, really sucks. For when you have to kill on player phase anyway. You at least will still be on enemy phase, which means you still will be able to get the 5 across the board on that phase. So you're basically looking at 55 defense because of Balmung. And as far as res is concerned, you're looking at 44 res. A bit less res, but it's definitely workable. Like I said, I do wish he had a bit less def and more res. But it is what it is. Attack smoke is self-explanatory. I don't think I have to explain on that one. He's overall decent, but he's far too reliant on Brave Lucina. At the end of the day, because Larcey got released at the same time as Shannan, it's very simple for me to just say this. Do not invest in Shannan, invest in Larcey instead. Breaks my heart to say this, but I'm looking at things from an objective standpoint here. And, well, that's just how it is. Kinda sucks considering his art is honestly badass. I absolutely love his art. But, yeah. Now let's talk about Larcey. This is the typical Iris set, right? You could just go Brazen Attack Def, by the way, on the set on the right. But you're basically looking here at 44 def, 46 res. Okay? With the distant counter set. 44 def, 46 res. Are you kidding me? This is with 76 attack and 54 speed? And the enemy cannot buff against me whatsoever? Huh? How? Why is this a thing? So the stat alone are really good. And Shannan can more or less match them. The res that Shannan has is utterly rubbish. Though I suppose if you combo this with Heirs, it can actually be not too bad. The thing is, well, Larsa here, yeah, just doesn't really care about supports. She just works everywhere, which makes her a cut above the other units. So the one thing that makes Larsa's edge so much better is cooldown -1. The infamous Ragnar Astra kills that Eira can pull off is ridiculous. Keep in mind, a double brazen attack, whatever the second part is of the brazen attack, Eira that run Ragnar Astra that is under Wrath will typically be able to take the hit the enemy has, which means what will typically happen is that she will proc, get hit, and then proc again. This makes Eira so dangerous that my Eira ended up killing a Brave Hector on a death tile in one go, despite the fact that the Brave Hector was +10 and, you know, had Ostian counter and everything. So you were basically looking at, like, I think 68 death or some shit like this, and I still killed it. Now, how the heck do you feel about that, about hearing that, when this was with a 14 might slaying edge, and now you're comparing this to a 20 might slaying edge that also gives 4 speed, def, and res, which makes it easier for her to just, you know, tank the hit in the middle of those two special that she procs, still have the same special, and also shutting down any buff the enemy might have. It's kinda insane. No matter how you look at it, Larsa is a busted unit. I'm kinda thankful it's at least Larsa here, you know, a character that people wanted from FE4 instead of something like Altena, but even then I feel like that's a bit much. Still, as far as sword unit goes, I'd say she's easily top 3, if not top 2. I think Altena is still the best overall, just because Vantage with Brave Lucina is so utterly disgusting on that unit. But Larsa is a very strong contender, to say the least. She is busted beyond measure. Set on the right also provides her even more bulk, which means 51 defense. Yeah, 51 defense and 53 res. What? You're in the 50 in both bulk. You're proccing for 21 damage a time. Once Wrath is proccing, you're basically proccing for 31 damage. And this is all backing up a 72 attack unit. And you can proc it twice a fight. The only thing that can really shut you down is something like Steady Stance, Warding Stance, and so on. But since most units that use those tend to be green, oh boy, I believe she can actually one-shot Surtur, which is no small feat. And she can even just, you know, tank Sinmara, then just tank the hit and just go to town and Surtur anyway, which means setting up Ragnar Astra for other fights. Honestly, it's a wonder why they decided to just one-up Eira. Eira was honestly still top 3 before this banner. I do think right now she's top 4 because at the end of the day, even the one build that she has with Slaying Edge, at the end of the day you can just be like, oh, I'll just use Shannan with a Slaying Edge, and you just have a better unit than Eira overall. You lose a bit of res, but that's basically it. You have more def, you have more attack, you have basically the same speed. It's just insane. Oh, and another thing, Larsa has 3 more attack than Eira. But because of the Slaying Edge, it's more like 9. Because you have a 16 might weapon, so that's 2 more than the Slaying Edge. So it goes to 5, and the Slaying Edge in question also gives 4 across the board. 9. Yeah, so, you know, just be scared, be very scared if you have to deal with this. Thankfully, she's an infantry unit, so you should not have to deal with her too often. I guess this means Ira is going to be getting a refine. I don't think next month, because next month is going to be either Joshua or... Actually, it could be Ira. I think it's still going to be a book 1, but like choose your legend hero or far-fetched hero. But time will tell on that one. Time will definitely tell on that one. Still, very, very busted unit. Another thing you can do with her is to build her more defensively, and this is a good way to go about it. Repel in general is just really good. It allows her to just take hit a lot easier, and you can go Speed Plus as a result. Speed Plus is actually not bad purely for the fact that, first off, it's 4 more speed, but also because Repel requires you to have 10 more speed than the enemy. So at that point, 58 speed is not exactly a bad thing to go for, because that can make the difference between, say, 20% and 36%. So, you know, that's definitely a lot of damage you're saving yourself from. Still, if you plan on using her for other things than a tank set, I don't think speed is too great. I'd definitely go attack plus or rest plus, depending on how you go about it. Set on the right is very self-explanatory. Attack rest bond pushes the rest to 39, and attack def bond pushes the def to 39. This is a set that's more fixed on being tanky and also on just having a healer supporting yourself effectively. With buff, it's 45-45, and with Larcy's Edge, it's 49 def and 49 res. The enemy cannot debuff your attack or res at that point, and you're also looking at 78 attack, as well as 54 speed. Again, just really difficult to deal with Larcy. Her bulk just makes it very easy to work around it in a manner that will end up making you very bulky in both. Which is not exactly something that you see all too often nowadays. But yeah, I think that's about all I had to say about this. Overall, kind of disappointing. 3 out of 4 units are not exactly worth pulling for. I do think Shannan is a good unit. It's just that Larcy completely overshadows him. I don't see anything that he does better than, you know, Larcy can do. That's just kind of how it is. As far as Altena is concerned, she just needed more speed, man. What the hell did you do to her? What the heck did you do to her? It doesn't even make sense with her stat line. And it just hurts. It really does. Because there is so much resource I would have pumped into her if, you know, she was more viable. But the way she is, I'll probably just build her, maybe even forget that she exists and not use her too much, or just find a team that's very specific for her to function in, like a team centered around Kaden, to end up overcoming the problem that is her lack of speed. I'm overall not exactly happy with the state the game is in right now, but that's purely because I just have been... How can I put this? I feel like I've been strangled to death. Not once, not twice, but like 3 times at this point. The first time was the Tarika banner, having, you know, Asien just completely screwed over. Marita having a weapon that makes no sense for the character. Abel, which was okay purely because of stats and then did not get demoted, despite the fact that her weapon is very niche and her A skill is very not used because form skills are pretty garbage. Even if it was demoted, not that many people would use that. Just saying. And the fact that she didn't demote on Christmas was, you know, only adding insult to injury. The second time was Leif. Leif gets a refine. I'm all happy, and I'm like, oh, all he needs is like adaptive damage, and then something about cooldown for the refine. It's so easy, like they can't fuck this one up. And they decide to give cooldown -1, which is commendable. That's actually a good refine. But they didn't touch the base effect, as if the base effect is still good in 2020. That skill was awful on release, let alone now. Nowadays, units tend to have very mixed bulk. This does nothing to help. Even if it was adaptive damage, you'll be getting like an extra 3, 4, 5 damage here and there, which is not exactly like the most broken thing, but it's at least something. And if you're dealing with units that have really high def and low res, you'd be able to catch them off guard, which is at least, you know, commendable. The way he is right now is just not great. But I think I'm going to save my thoughts about Leif for the refined tier list update. And then the third time is this banner. I get 2 of my favorite characters added to the game, and neither of them are exactly worth it. I wanted to make Evil a project, couldn't. Wanted to make Leif a project, couldn't. Because I'm not going to plus 10 a character I don't plan on using. That's the height of foolishness. And on this banner, I would plus 10 Shannan, I would plus 10 Altena, but even with the fact I will most likely plus 10 Altena, I don't know what I'm gonna do with her. It's just, her stat line is very awkward to work with. And Shannan, like, I would plus 10 him, but it just doesn't feel worth it, you know? I would plus 10 Larsay, but I don't know. Between her or Ira, I prefer hearing Ira, and Ira does just fine still to me. So I'll probably just not bother. That's just how it is. I'm kind of happy for Ced, but, well, we have already talked about Ced. He's the biggest loser of this banner. The next banner ends up being FE4 Gen 1. Though it's most likely gonna be Fates, because there's so many Fates characters that scored really high in Choose Your Legend. But say it's FE4 Gen 1, and they actually end up fucking up my boy Lex. I don't know if I'm even going to continue playing this game, to be honest. It's getting ridiculous. I'm not exactly, like, too happy with like characters I like just getting fucked over and over. It's just really painful. And Travant, oh, don't get me started on Travant. Oh, but he doesn't have Gungnir in the Gen 2 when you encounter him. Yeah, so? I love how even in the Forging Bond they're like, oh, there's the Earthly Gaybolg and the, what was it, Heavenly, I think? Heavenly Gungnir. I guess he was meant to have Gungnir, and then Aryan would have the Heavenly Gungnir. Aryan is Travant's son, by the way. But no. No, he just gets a silver lens because aha XD. I really hate the fact that they end up being faithful to the game the characters are from, but only when it just, you know, is a good thing to them. Hey, I don't have to put effort into creating a weapon. Just give a silver lens. Yeah. Hopefully this was not too annoying to watch. I know that I've been very bitter overall in this review, but... I mean, I'm still human. I'm going to get salty over characters I like just getting ruined for no reason. You know? But, yeah. I think that's about all I have to say about this banner. Just, you know, a small reminder. Don't expect a new video right away. I'll try to get the GHB Tempestral tiers up tomorrow, but I'm not making any promises. It's going to be very hard. Right now it's literally 6:30 a.m. and I have to go to work in less than an hour. Yeah, I did not manage to sleep because I ended up working on this video instead. Oops. But yeah. I should be able to get videos more consistently out starting Thursday, and I think Saturday should be the video I'll be able to work on the Refined Tiers update. I'm so sorry for the delay though. I do wish I was able to do more, but this is basically as much as I can do while, you know, not working myself too much to the bone. But yeah. Have a nice rest of the day, everyone. I'll see you all later or on Discord. See ya!